Hola todos! Welcome back to another episode on the Bruja Cat channel. We're going to be continuing on in our Taino Espiritismo series, so today we're going to be talking about Yaya-el and the creation of the Caribbean Sea. So in a way, this is a continuation of the creation myth found in Taino mythology, so if you haven't seen the first parts in this video series, go check that out first, and then come back to this. And as always, I have tons and tons of references, links, and resources in the description below. I'm basically going to be copying and pasting it into each description video for this Taino Espiritismo series. And as always, be aware that this is very difficult to research due to 500 years of colonization basically destroying any evidence, and a lot of these practices are being reinvigorated now by the people who are trying to rediscover their ancestral heritage. So if any of this information contradicts with what you've heard, let me know in the comments below, just in case you have different names for things, different names for different semi, or different stories as well. Let us know in the comments. And by engaging in this video, you're actually helping the algorithm and helping it to reach other people from the Caribbean to discover their heritage. And we also want to know if there are any more resources out there for learning and uncovering more evidence about the Taino people. If you have any oral tradition as well, please let us know in the comments. So in previous videos, we talked about Atabe and Yukahu. Now, please be aware that Atabe has 5 different names, so depending on where you're from, you may call her by a different name. Some people call her Yaya, some people call her Atabes. And so because of this, that's how we get the semi-spirit name Yaya-el, meaning born of Yaya. So this is a semi-spirit that was born from Yaya, from her womb, and let me get into the story about him in a little bit. So I want to make it clear to everyone that in the Taino community, people are adamant that these spirits are not deities. So depending on where you're from in the world, you may have different deities that are similar to these, similar to the creation myths and stories and stuff like that. These are really interesting comparisons to make. But just know that in the Taino pantheon, these are ancestral spirits, nature spirits, and creation spirits. And there are 4 different types of semiduho. So the first one are zembihi. So these are like totems, little sculptures that you keep with you in order to venerate the semi-spirit, and you use them as a spirit guide in your own personal journey. The next one are semiupiai. So these are ancestral spirits of people that have died, that have passed away. So these are your lineage, your heritage, your ancestors. The next one are zemini. So these are people spirits. So ancient caciques that you pass on the oral tradition of their legends. And then the last one are Cemiyayi. So these are the semi-great spirits, spirits of nature, and spirits of creation. And most of the time when we're talking about semi-spirits, we are talking about Cemiyayi spirits. Most of the time anyway. Now one thing I would like to address is the different spellings of the word semi. Now the Taino people did not have a written language or alphabet. Nahuatl was invented by Dr. Yare Melendez in 2005. This was in their effort of linguistic revitalization of this extinct or dead language which is no longer spoken by native speakers. However, it's not a perfect system with no regard to phonemic orthography or how it would have been spoken, with many of these graphemes being different iterations of these same phonemes. So in layman's terms, to put it simply, the Taino etymology or the creation of their words and their language simply formed differently than our modern day languages in use today. And many efforts to revitalize this language have to borrow grammar and syntax from Spanish and English in order to form a cohesive language. Another revitalization effort of the Taino language can be seen in the Taino syllabary invented by Miguel A. Sage Jr. For more videos on Taino content, be sure to follow the channel Casa Areyto, which is teaching the Taino language here on YouTube. And as always, you can find links to all of these resources in the description box below, and I'll talk about the Taino language in my future videos. But for now, we're getting way off topic, so let's continue on in our video. So those are the 4 different types of semiduho. And in later videos, I will talk about zemini and other legends, oral traditions about ancient caciques and the stories of creation and the different cycles of the semi-oral tradition. And just in case you didn't know, there's a lot of towns, cities in the Caribbean that are named after these caciques. So, for example, I was born in Caguas, Puerto Rico, so Caguas used to be the cacique Caguash, so it's named after a Taino chief. Now back to Yaya-el and his story. So as I said, Yaya-el was the son of Yaya, the mother spirit of creation, the matriarch in the Taino mythology. And Yaya-el was jealous of this spirit's ability for creation. And so there was some treachery afoot, and Yayael tried to kill Yaya or Atabe. And of course he couldn't. He got caught, and then Yaya or Atabe took Yayael, the son, and killed him. Then she took his bones and put him into a potisa pot. So for those of you that don't know, this is a potisa. It's basically a Taino ceramic pot. They're mostly used for collecting water and collecting other things inside of it. And traditionally, this is where people would put their ancestors' bones into. So, like I said before, they're semiduho. They would take their remains. It's very similar to an urn when you're cremating somebody, and you put their remains into the potisa pot. And a lot of Taino people that still follow the traditions will hang this potisa pot in their house. And if they follow these ancient Taino traditions, they will also have a semiduho mound outside of their house. So it's similar to having a little graveyard mound outside of their house, surrounded by little rocks, and this is how they venerate the semiduho spirits. Now remember when I talked about that there's a lot of twins in the Taino pantheon? Well, we're gonna get into that right now and talk about the 4 cardinal directions, which are a pair of quadruplets. I'm just reading their names off of my notes here. So the 4 cardinal directions all have their own names and their representations, their spiritual meanings behind each of the 4 cardinal directions. So south facing is called Aciano and represents open-mindedness. The west is named Koromo and represents inner vision. The north is Rakuno and represents wisdom and experience. And the east is Sobaiko and represents illumination and enlightenment. Now, similarly to other North American tribes, the Taino wheel also corresponds with the 4 cardinal directions and the seasons of the year. Now, contrary to the North American tribes' 4 directions, the Taino medicine wheel has a different color to the south. As you can see here, the south is represented by green and symbolizes guanajo or the turkey. The west is represented by black and symbolizes mukaro, the owl. The north represents white and symbolizes babei, the elusive hummingbird. However, other Taino words for hummingbird include colibri and zumzum. And then the east is represented by yellow and symbolizes waraguao, the hawk. You can see that more easily represented here in this image with each of the 4 cardinal directions on the wheel. And fun fact, the Tainos had their own form of astrology, astronomy, and being able to tell time in order to celebrate the equinoxes. Now, in these Taino stories, the 4 cardinal directions are sort of mischievous, and they're represented almost very childlike. So these are sort of like mischievous little spirits that just run about and create a little bit of chaos, but these are good spirits. So in the story of Yayael, the 4 cardinal directions come and they want to steal from the potisa pot. So when they were inside of Yaya's bohio, one of the 4 cardinal directions accidentally bumped into Yayael's potisa pot and knocked it down because it was hanging up, and he knocked it down and poured out all of Yayael's remains and created the Caribbean Sea, the ocean, all of the animals, the fish, all of the sea creatures poured out from that potisa pot, and that's how the Caribbean Sea was formed. And then in a later video, I will talk about Deminan Garagarakol. This is one of the 4 cardinal directions that became the scabby one, as his name says. So in a later video, I will talk more about him, because what I'm doing is that I'm describing each one of the semi-spirits, each one of the Taino stories in a separate video, so that way I can talk more in depth about them without this running super long. So if you like this video, make sure to give me a like, subscribe, and share this video with other people, so then that way you can continue the oral tradition of the Taino stories. So thanks for watching. I have my link tree in the description below. If you want to follow me on TikTok, I'm way more active on there. My YouTube channel is more like video essays and continuing this oral tradition of the Taino Espiritismo. So follow me on TikTok. That way you can get more video content from me daily. And thank you for watching.